All right, we're live. Welcome everyone to Table Talk, where we talk all things tabletop. I'm your host, The Bella Gamer, with my co-host Glue Boy.
Hello, hello.
And we got a great stream today. We're gonna be talking about the wildly successful Trench Crusade Kickstarter.
Yes, it is absolutely popped off.
And as well, we're going to talk about Divine Mysteries, which is coming out later this month, and kind of talk about what happened with War of Immortals and whether Divine Mysteries, because it's another, divinely focused book, if it's going to suffer from some of the same problems. There's also some interesting discourse on the class archetypes and everything as well. So we have a very interesting conversation today. But before we get to that, and if you're new to the channel or anything like that, watching this post-fact, we tend to get to like the bulk of everything 20 minutes in because we're letting people hop in. So, skip to that point if you just want to get to the subject matter. But Alex, what's been going on?
Well, I have been a little forced to take a break because I got a slight back injury for the past week. I don't know what happened, but in between myself waking up a good few days ago and heading to work, I somehow hurt my lower back. And I was in it's still a little rough, but it's way better. But man, oh man, it was such intense pain. I was like, I'm not making videos. I can't fucking do this. And it's all, I just strictly blame this. I took an extended break from specifically deadlifts. So my lower back was just weaker than it should have been. And you know what? Not gonna make that mistake again. Once I safely can lift heavy shit again, I'm gonna go right back to it. But man, it's been painful.
Yeah, I have a good so exercise for lower back, actually. That's been working wonders for me personally. It's just like a bent over cowbell raise.
Oh yeah.
It destroys my lower back, but that's kind of the point. So
yeah,
it's been really good.
Gotta have it good and strong. I let it slack, and it's just if you have your any of your parts, upper body, lower body, or back, kind of out of sync, which I do right now, it's not good. So don't do that. I need to get back into it, and I will not make this mistake again, because oh my god.
Yeah.
So I was going to make more stuff. I had everything planned out, and then I was at work being like, this sucks. And then I was in moments where I was like, God, I understand people who are like, it's floor time, just laying on the floor. I understand this. I also was like, God, I kind of understand why old people are cranky, because I was getting crankier. Just I was like, yeah, if you're just in perpetual my hip, my joints, my back hurts all the time. Yeah, I get that actually. I get why they might be just cranky and crotchety all the time. So that's been my week. It's been a lot of that.
Yeah. It's been a big balance of a lot of things for me. I did learn that because I've been having some troubles with one of my hips that went away for a long time. And then I was walking around with Suzanne outside, and my hip started hurting really bad. So I've learned that cold weather is just really bad for my joints now, which makes me sound really old. But that's just... I've been fine otherwise. Actually, I've been feeling real good lately. I'm finally, done 100% with being sick. There's this really sick part, and then there's, a week or so of just, constantly hyper congested all the time. And now I feel good. I haven't really been working on my diet for a month, even though I lost 4 pounds last month. I've just, being aware of what you're eating is good, but I'm probably gonna hit the diet back again here soon. And I'm excited to get back into Really excited to get back into working out, again. And I got a lot of interesting videos. I kind of want to do some more creative video work before Divine Mysteries came out. Finished the last. I actually thought I'd finished Lancer, but I'm one for license off. I gotta do the Emperor next. I want to do Fabula Ultima content and like kind of make content on just tabletop stuff. So that's been all my current goals and such, and been loving Metaphor Refantasio so much.
Yeah, that game is really good.
I'm almost done. I'm in the last part of it, almost 80 hours in. So
I have been a bit slow. I've only completed the first trial. Like I've been kind of slow going, taking my time with it. I don't want to burn out, and just trying out playing some other stuff that's been fun on the side. Like for the first time in my life, I decided, you know what? Metroidvanias, I want to try them. I want to play more of them. And I've been playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and I understand why everyone calls that game a masterpiece.
Yeah, that's a really, really good one.
Fucking, oh my, absolute fucking banger. Like, I get it. It's one of, I love it. I love it when you hear your entire life that this game, absolute 10 out of 10, and then you play it and you're like, yeah, they were right. That's always such a fun experience, because I've only played like a couple Castlevania games, some weird ones. It was Mirror of Fate and Aria of Sorrow. Those are the only two, and I can say Aria of Sorrow is really good. Mirror of Fate is I'm happy that it's a good stepping stone that they then worked on Metroid Dread, because Metroid Dread is a fucking banger. Mirror of Fate is alright. That game is okay. But yeah, that Metaphor Refantasio is very cool. I like the job system a lot. I'm a big fan of it. It's like, I like that it is a melding of like the 3 Atlas titles I like. It takes the good parts of Persona, the good parts of SMT, and the good parts of Etrian Odyssey, and then pushes them together. I like that. I like that a lot.
And a little sad this month because I was going to be playing the early access for Path of Exile 2, which got pushed back a month. I did play the Monster Hunter Wilds beta though. That was so good. Oh my god.
I've been hearing people were playing that.
It was only open for a weekend, but what I like is it added a little bit more of the action from Monster Hunter Rise, but it still feels like Monster Hunter World. So it's not as arcadey as Rise is, but it's also not as slow as Monster Hunter World is, which, by the way, like the numbers for Monster Hunter has been wild lately. So many people are so interested in even playing Monster Hunter World, which that game is so old now. That game's gotta be like 8-9 years old now, right? Let me double check here real quick. But
something. I mean, I remember playing it around when we first met. So like I was like 2017, 2016, 2017. I think 2017. So
it came out in 17.
That's at least when we were like hanging out. So like I remember playing that actively, and I played that in like the first year or so of release.
Yeah, this game came out. I also have like a billion hours in it,
which is the one Monster Hunter game I played and moderately enjoyed because it had a normal control scheme.
2018, so a 6-year-old game at this point, which isn't that bad, but there's still tons of people playing all the time. So
if they drop a demo, or if Wilds is on Game Pass, I would give it a try because like if it's a little faster than Worlds, I might find it more enjoyable. Because like my big thing about Monster Hunter titles is like I can understand the idea of like committing to an attack and like I enjoy that. It is always just like the way those games handle and control is just a thing where I'm like, man, this is cool, but like, eh. And then Worlds, my thing was like, this game almost is hitting it because like this guy controls like a normal person, but like, man, oh man, I wish I was a little bit faster. Just like worked a little bit more like a human.
Yeah, this one is a little bit faster, so.
So that was my issue. So if that fixes it cool. That, and then the other problem was just like it was hard for me to find a weapon that I actually felt cool and fun using. I think the insect glaive was like a weapon I liked, but I had to like learn it.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of deep tech in Monster Hunter in general, so.
Oh yeah, which I found out way later after stopping playing World. It was like, oh, there's just a lot of shit I just didn't know. That's all that was. I think I just didn't understand it.
It's one of the few games where, like, you have a repeated mechanic of fighting the same boss essentially over and over again, and I have not gotten tired of it because it's so tech intensive that you can always kind of, like, improve every time you hunt a monster. There's no, like, learn the strat, do a poke kind of thing like you would get in, like, Souls-like kind of games. It's always, if you're insanely good, you can just raffle stomp a monster, but you're probably not. So there's a lot you can do to like learn to get closer and closer to doing that. And that's I think what they've done very, very well with the game so far. And then like World was great because like invading monsters changed so much. But yeah, so you know, lots of fun game stuff currently. And
yeah, Stalker 2 is coming out in November 20th, and good luck finding me when that comes out.
that's funny enough, that's when Divine Mysteries comes out, so
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, fuck. Yeah, it comes out that table talk, because I was gonna make a thing about like, yeah, man, I'm feeling sick in 12 days.
yeah.
But like I want to be there for that because like that's gonna be big.
Yeah.
You know what? Also, actually, it's a game that I'm weirdly looking forward to. The fucking Indiana Jones game. Because if you've seen any gameplay for it that they dropped recently,
I haven't.
It actually looks really sick. Because it's because like the whole thing where they dropped like, okay, it's an Indiana Jones game, first person. You're like, okay, that's interesting. It's an immersive sim. Like stealth first person, like immersive sim.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that's really fun. Like it's got like puzzle mechanics, a lot of like cool stuff about it where then you level up Indiana Jones to be like, all right, what kind of stuff do you want to do? Do you want to more focus on the more puzzle solving? Do you want to be more stealthy? Do you want to focus on melee? Because like, yeah, you have some guns, but like the guns are like loud or have some bullets, but the combat's more reliant on like picking something up in the environment and then like kicking someone's ass with it. It breaks, and then you have to run and like fight someone else. It's like literal the combat from the movies. And then it's Troy Baker, apparently is the voice actor, but you couldn't tell. He's doing a really good impression of Harrison Ford. And the reviewers who have played it said it is like playing one of the movies. Which immediately I was like, that sounds like a great time. I kind of want to try this out. Which it's coming out on Game Pass for me, so I'm happy. I will. That's an easy play for me. I love me some immersive sims, so that sounds like my shit. Lego Indiana Jones is a great time, so I respect that.
Yeah, Lego games
it is by
never miss.
They never do. And yeah, it is by the Wolfenstein devs. Except for that like one big miss. They've been consistently pretty good.
But Yeah, also legitimately recently as well, tons of like tabletop stuff kind of has been showing up, which has been very interesting. We'll probably talk about some of that a little bit later as well. But I'm really excited for next year. Next year's gonna be pretty jam-packed, and I'm definitely making it a big thing for the channel to try to cover like as many different new games as possible. Like, there's some variety tabletop channels out there that have done pretty well, but they're always kind of like, you know, a month or so or a couple weeks between videos. And I just want to be that channel that comes out and just bangs out tons of content on as many different kinds of games as possible. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes. There was also something else. What was it? I'm being distracted by the smell of like smoke. I think neighbors burning something outside. But I think next year is going to be very interesting for tabletop for a lot of reasons. But why don't we talk about Trench Crusade? Because Trench Crusade, I think, is the representation of the hopes and dreams of the tabletop, like what are games like Warhammer or whatever war games called? Is there like an actual proper name for them?
No, yeah, that's literally what they are. They're tabletop war games.
Yeah, I just never hear that like used that way.
Oh, that's literally all I hear. Being
Weird.
like entrenched in that is tabletop war game.
Okay, so tabletop war game. Because so many people are so interested, so invested in it, and I think a lot of people, and I'm speaking from someone who's a little bit, you know, more looking from the outside, but it feels like a lot of people are really looking for a reason to not be playing Warhammer. Like, not that they hate Warhammer, but it's more like that's like the game, unless you're really into the period style like war games, like the World War I or World War II war games, or some of the medieval ones.
Exactly, which there are, like, the big name is like Warhammer. You can play 40k or Age of Sigmar. Those are your two. And then there's a smattering of other games. Like, the ones that I know that are actually like successful is either owned by Games Workshop, because there's a Lord of the Rings game that I think is also well, but still obscure. There is the only other games that I know that I've seen any form of like public play. There's a mech game. I think it's like Mech Warrior. Yeah, Mech Warrior is like or something. Does pretty well, but that's like that's still like, yeah, war game. There's any of the Star Wars systems, be it like X-Wing or the actual like because all those Star Wars systems, how they work is they actually are like a set scale. They go from like ship combat, like dogfights, they go all the way up to like cruiser fight to dogfight to on the ground fights, to like big army scale to like individual hero scale, which is pretty fun. So you can do like a whole campaign of all of their games. That company is doing pretty well. There's a Fallout system that I've heard pretty good like things about, and then there's Bolt Action, which is a really realistic World War II game. It is dense as fuck. I have a friend who played a game of Bolt Action, and he came out of it going, "Oh, Jesus Christ." Because you have to like simulate, okay, your character is in a building, you have to account for this and this and this and this, because you're someone trying to shoot out of it. There's a lot. And then there's an alt history version of Bolt Action, if that's a little too much for you, but it's still just as rules dense.
Right.
Because it's like, I'm playing werewolf Russians and like Nazi zombies and like things like that. And that's kind of it. Those are your options, and then there's a lot of indie stuff. So people are genuinely looking for alternatives to war games. And then comes Trench Crusade, which is doing, I think, something really, really interesting, especially based off of some of the stated design principles of the creators, which is a team of 3 people. It should be stated. And especially by the artist, Mike Francina, is designing something with a lot of the purposes of things he was told he was not allowed to put in the games that he was working on for professional projects. Which, yeah, if you scroll through any of the art on stream, which is if you do, you should curate first, just in case. I'd recommend having some art, because man, it hits hard and it looks real good. But every once in a while, you might be hit by a flashbang of like, whoa. If anything, I can send you some safe art. But yeah, it is. And I should probably also, before we go into like the actual Kickstarter, give a rundown of what Trench Crusade actually is.
Sure.
Just in case.
Yeah, I'm currently looking over like a lot of the new stuff on the Kickstarter, but go ahead.
Yeah. For those that don't know, Trench Crusade is an alternate history of World War I, set in a world that it's not our world, should also be stated. It is, they're giving themselves that out so they're not like fully stuck to our history. But it is a world where essentially in the year like 1100 or something, the Crusaders, when they took over Jerusalem at the era of like the First Crusade, when they went to go take over Jerusalem, they found a bunch of artifacts, some satanic artifacts underneath Jerusalem, got some evil whispers in their head, and fell to Satanism like immediately, which destroyed the whole city, opened a hell portal, and the biblical apocalypse descended on the world. And this is a world that the apocalypse is happening fully, and humanity is trying its best to survive. And right now, the year, as they put in the game, is the year of our Lord 1914. And the world has modernized into trench warfare against the forces of hell itself. It is a pretty bad, nasty time, because like the forces of hell are about like 1/3 of the population, and there are a lot of powers at play. It's still a war game. Everyone fights each other. Everyone has their own horse in the race because everyone believes that they're really God's chosen. They're going to win this one. And there's going to be a lot more factions coming soon, but we got some really, really cool factions. We got Trench Pilgrims, which are a disorganized lot, literally unassociated with the church. They are not supported at all by the Catholic Church, but a bunch of people gather around a charismatic, basically cult leader, and wage war in no man's land, based on a lot of different religious teachings, some of which bordering on heretical. The Principality of New Antioch, which is the main Christian nation. We have the Iron Sultanate, which is the giant conglomerate of Islamic people that all ran to a literal wall shelter created by Allah himself as like a miracle, because, you know, the hell portal opened up in Islamic nations, and after a lot of just awful wars that took over, they were going to die, and then a miracle happened. And then some horrible satanic forces like the Heretic Legions, which they have some horrible units, many of which forged after a straight up pilgrimage to hell itself. The Cavalcade of the Seventh Plague, I think they're called. I can find that out real quick. That's just off the top of my head.
Yeah, to give a much more like rough down look. All right, Noth, give Chase a hero point. Also, good job playing Tabletop while listening to Table Talk. Probably should pay attention to the session, but I guess we're glad you're here. So, Trench Crusade is a tabletop war game. There are currently 6 different factions. It's very oh goodness. I guess is there a specific term for like World War II or World War One, sorry, aesthetics?
I guess literally it's just World War One, but it's just like religious grimdark, like I don't know. I don't know if there's a term for like the genre of World War One, but yeah, the vibe is just like trench World War One, like that exact vibe.
But it's very much World War One, grimdark aesthetics. It very much mixes, you know, like medieval looking armor sets with people with chain guns or using like old fashioned riot shields. Even like there's that gas mask punk kind of look. Like there's a lot of that. And it's just like, all right, so what if we took the battle style of World War One and then we infused it with religious and demonic tones? And that's what we got. That's the like there are demons, there are dudes with gas masks shooting like assault rifles and bolt actions, and there looks to be some kind of either demonic or like just big dude units on each side.
Oh yeah.
The trench pilgrims literally have a moving like
giant Iron
cathedral
Maiden
thing.
Yeah, that is literally a monk they sequestered in an Iron Maiden that is like perpetually bleeding. That is a like a penitent like unit essentially. It is his holy charge to sit in an Iron Maiden and pilot a mech suit.
But yeah, so if that's like if that is your aesthetic, which some of these are very aesthetic, it's looking interesting. And I think what a lot of people really want is, I think there's also a kind of a cry out for a slightly more accessible war game, because some of the more like Warhammer has kind of done some simplifying over the years and has kind of mostly made a not entry level, a moderate war game in a lot of ways.
And 10th edition is very streamlined.
Yeah.
It has not gone
for better or worse
5e, but it is like it's very quick to play. And if I'm trusting a friend of mine that is you know what? I do trust him. He is competitively ranked in the United States. He is top 50 in the United States. So one of the best players. He really likes a lot of the things 10th edition has done. He trusts that it is heading in a good direction. And I trust the arguments he was making. I like the points he was making. I think that in doing so, they sacrificed a lot of the game's identity.
Yeah.
And I think there is still an argument you can make there. But I think there's still a lot of good points on both sides. And I think that in the meantime, Trench Crusade has done a lot of really good work at making it so your actual units are modular enough that you can like, you know, make it so your army has a build. Because like, fun little fact about how the list building works, you have a point system, like ducats as it's called, and you have your unit, and then you can build what type of weapons and like equipment they take. Every single unit is customizable, so you can really build the exact type of army you want and like mix and match exactly what it is without it being like the Warhammer style of like, whoa there, partner. You said that this guy has a flamethrower, but I see a plasma gun. That's illegal.
Right.
which is not how it works here, because it's specifically it's a lot more casual because there's no official units yet. And yeah, the good old Black Grail Fly Gang. And no Mormon faction yet. The Americas in this setting have not been discovered, quote unquote. The Europeans did not sail over there. They have bigger problems. Christopher Columbus could not get the boat to get the funding to go get in his ship because, like, he might have asked, and then they were like, "We have demons currently trying to get over here." No. So they haven't gone over to the Americas. So apparently something is happening over there, but we don't know yet.
But they plan on for Trench Crusade having a living rule book. So you can the rules will always be available online for free. So you're gonna always have access to it. And they're offering to, it looks like they're offering to, if you don't want to purchase models, which they're kind of looking into a way you can buy physical models, you can also buy digital blueprints for the models.
Yes.
So you can print your own. And the prices seem pretty legit. I mean, some of the models range from like $6 digitally to like $46. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's for a pack. Yeah. $13 seems to be the highest a individual unit. No, $18 is the highest an individual unit costs.
Which, from what I understand in my stuff I've worked on when it comes to modeling, that is a pretty fair price for STL units. For something of actual decent quality, STL like modeling, like for some of these like really highly detailed things, this like desecrated saint, for example, with how much is going on, and if it's going to be like a good print with like supports and everything, that's worth like $18.
Well, it's also very accessible pricing, which
exactly
is a really big thing. Now, this does seem to be more of like a smaller faction game. So, not smaller faction, but like you're not operating as many units as you would be in Warhammer.
Oh, yeah, it is. You're operating on a smaller thing, because I need to go into the rules exactly how the conversion model to point wise is, but like 40k a standard game is 2,000 points, and in this game it's 700 ducats is the vibe. I need to figure out how many actual models to field that is, and like for 40k that's a good amount of models. For Trench Crusade, I bought myself a warband, full warband for the Iron Sultanate, and it doesn't seem like I'm getting a crazy amount of models for it. Maybe like 13, 14?
Yeah.
Something like that. So like that's not that bad.
Yeah.
That's decent. I feel better about transporting that than I do with like, I don't know, fucking 40 or 50 like models for like a Space Marine army.
I mean, to be fair, I think there's like there's a fun part of having so many units.
Oh yeah.
As well. But
like those games are great, but like that's expensive.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. And that's why I feel like Trench Crusade, we're looking at a lower cost of entry, a lower like complexity level, while still having many of the same kind of tactical elements. I was reading some of the stuff here, and it's a 2d6 system, but there's many ways you can change the number of dice you roll. And there's even ways where you can utilize enemies' wounds against them. So, like, there's all kinds of things that seem to interact in a very interesting way. But the Kickstarter, which currently has 4 days left, is at over $2 million.
Yeah.
$2,073,007 currently, with 11,000 backers, which 11,000 backers. Like, there's some people paying money on this.
I mean, you pay enough money, it's like, you pay enough money and they give you every model in the game.
Right.
So,
Because
like,
let's see here.
fair.
Let's just do 2 million to like 11.5. Not exact numbers, but yeah, well, actually, you know what? Let's be real here. All right, so there's a lot of numbers. 2073007 divided by 11976. Okay, wow, that's super funny. With my reduced numbers, I got almost the same number. I'm awesome. The average backer is paying $173 to this particular Kickstarter. That's absolutely insane. I think this really speaks to the fact that there's a lot of people who just really want a different tabletop game, or a tabletop war game that is that same grimdark, you know. The whole point's a war game, right? Like, you're going in. The fun is the nitty gritty. The fun is the fantasy kind of behind it. And I really do feel like Trench Crusade has a good chance of breaking out if there's a lot of like community built up around it that's not super cringy, which is something we have been seeing. Some of the community itself seems fine, but there's a lot of detractors that jump in to cause a lot of problems. But like, if this is something we start seeing at like your local game store or everything like that, I feel like this is just a lot easier to get into, and it still has a lot of the same kind of appeal as Warhammer without needing to invest like $300 to get a small army, right?
Yeah, because that is the important thing about Warhammer, like, to remember, is the price jump to get into 40K, which is the thing I'm very familiar with, is pretty fucking expensive.
Yeah.
It's a lot to get a full playable army if you want to like start playing like tournaments or like full games. It's a lot. Like, you're gonna have to shell out a lot of money. Like, you're looking at upward, like above definitely like $600 if you're paying for like new GW stuff. If you're not buying anything secondhand, or like you're not gonna buy a pre-owned army or anything like that, you're buying everything from box. Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
That's gonna be rough. And so the idea that, like, for me, for example, I donated to the Kickstarter, and the idea that I am now going to be able to play this war game with whoever, and my price of investment was $45. That's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm going to have to do is go get somebody to 3D print it. I already have somebody who's going to help me 3D print it. My local store, who I'm friends with. He's really good at 3D printing. We have a deal. I'm gonna go work with him. I got store credit for that. So, and also he donated to the Trench Crusade Kickstarter. He's got every model as an STL. So, that's just the thing. That's also going to be the big thing, by the way. You have every model as an STL. You have every model in like just forever. You can print them as many as you want.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have just one and done. And they're just big believers of like hobbies are carried by 3D printing and like kit bashing. So they also are very much endorsing like building your own Trench Crusade models. Because it's very like, it's gonna be very cheap to enter. You can just make your own. You could force a 40K or like Age of Sigmar model and be like, yeah, this is actually because it's the same model size, this is actually a whatever model for Heretic Legion. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, cool, man. Nice cultists from this set that just got discontinued from Warhammer, and like it's now Legends. Well, good job. Welcome to the Trench Crusades, brother.
Yeah, see, this is the number one thing that I find to be absolutely ridiculous with a lot of like current games like Warhammer or the like is these extremely high barriers of to entry. Like if these war game companies sold like pog sets, right? Like $20, get a whole army of little like uh little, you know, cardboard markers for your army and play with that. So many more people would be interested in like trying it out like just as a game, and then they'll want to buy models because they really like the game, they really want to get into it. And like we've seen with like gacha and literally every other kind of game where you can like get in for so low effort, but that has like a skin system or model system, you know, gacha games like in our example, like you can play a gacha without ever spending money, but people do spend a lot of money. And it's like if you just make the game super accessible, people will buy the models because they like the game so much that they're like, yeah, this is I play this game a ton. I played this game like 100 hours in my local game store recently. I could spend $40 to get a really nice model, you know. I just wish I could try it on tabletop. Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing, right? Is if these games were made accessible, made easy, then more people would play, and then more people would spend money on it because they've been playing it a while. Like there's tons of games I didn't spend any money. I played a good amount. Like I played a lot of Path of Exile, and then I was like, okay, I played a ton of this game. This game is so ridiculously fun. I'm going to buy some of the inventories, and I'm going to buy like some skins for some of the abilities. And, you know, like I've considered it because I put like 200-300 hours into the game. So it's like, why wouldn't I? I put so much time into it for mostly free, you know, that like I'm enjoying it. That's what League of Legends is pretty much based on. And there's of course going to be people who are going to buy that shit anyway because they just have money to burn regardless. So it's just like, why isn't there just a super cheap marketable like pog sheet thing you can sell? They like, these are token stand-ins, play our game. And you know, like that just makes sense for tabletop war games, but tabletop war games are just kind of like a decade or so behind as far as like modernization is concerned. And tabletop's the same, I'll add.
Oh yeah, 100%. Which funnily enough, there are a group of people working to make Trench Crusade as conveniently playable as possible on Tabletop Sim. The only bit of hurdle right now is the team working with with Trench Crusade. They're working with the devs because there's just a small bit I looked over, and I think that's one of the people working at the actual game, saying like there's a small bit of concern that they have, being like, we really like the idea of tabletop sim, we want this, we support the idea of a digital game. However, you need to understand from the like community idea, there's just a small bit of concern we have as a business standpoint of just, you know, giving out 3D models.
Right,
like,
yeah.
The idea of this. However, we want to work with you guys to come up with a solution to make something like mutually that would come to a mutual decision between like the 3 devs and the community. So we will figure something out. That is what like that statement was with the people making the tabletop sim mod. They want to work with people because they're like, we've used tabletop sim. It's a good way to actually play the game with people because not everyone's friends in person. So we will figure something out. Let's work on this. Which I like that a lot actually as a response. Here, like actually communicating, saying, here is our situation. We understand your situation. Let's communicate.
Yeah.
Because they need to go digital. I think going digital is a good thing to do, especially for people like I think in a lot of people's situations, especially a lot of tabletop RPG players who might be like, the idea of a tabletop war game sounds fun, but is it something I want to do? That barrier of entry is so massive. But like, I don't want to spend $100 or hundreds of dollars on something I might not like, or hope that I make friends with a person who has spent a stupid amount of money on a hobby, try it out once and realize it's lame, but instead tabletop sim lets me demo it.
Yeah.
Like that's the fun of tabletop sim. How many board games have we demoed like using that? Like, it's great. So I think there needs to be a good digital solution like that for a lot of games. I hope they come to a solution like that.
Well, and I think that's just like a general thing for tabletop games. Like, as a hobby, we have to go digital in general. It doesn't matter if it's a war game or a role-playing game or whatever. We live in the internet era. And like, let's be real honest with ourselves here. Whenever you move, or whenever just being in a town, the likelihood of finding someone who enjoys like these kind of hobbies is not super great. You might get a handful of people depending on where you live. You might get lucky. But it's a lot of effort to go out and do that. And like, every day people are making friends online. Like, half of the friends I currently have that I talk with regularly, I met online and spoke to online. And I'm also like, I'm a socially adept kind of nerd. I've also made a good number of friends like in person doing like tabletop stuff, but that's not the case for most people, I will say. So, you know, you have friends you play with. Why not just move? Like, I hate all this talk of, no, tabletop shouldn't be a video game. It's like, we're not talking about making tabletop a video game. We're talking about having a digital playmat so that we can play with our friends. That works, you know, and that does things like the math that we like. Doing the math is not fun. If you think doing the math is fun, you're lying to yourself. You know, theory crafting the math, sure, but doing the math, like rolling the dice and counting the numbers and whatever, no one likes doing that. And I'm not even saying that everyone hates doing that. I'm just saying no one likes doing that. So there's no point in making it like a pain point for people who just don't care. So, you know,
I want a digital map because like the idea for me in both instances of playing a board game or tabletop like war game, like especially Trench Crusade, is either I have to go drive fucking like 4 hours to go play a bunch of board games, or I have to hope and pray that a bunch of people in my community are gonna get into Trench Crusade.
Yeah.
Which I at least know one guy is gonna get into Trench Crusade. And like, fair, but also I'm fucking busy. Like, I got shit I'm doing. You know, it'd be so much more convenient and more fun for me is if like my friends who are might be interested in playing a war game for the first time. If like I'd be like, hey, there's a really good tabletop sim mod, and I know you've been interested in war games. Let's try this out. Because I roughly know kind of how the game's working, but like I want to learn it too. Like I need to actually learn how the game works. But the way I learn games is by playing them.
You know what's super funny about that too? So I had a question about how the drained condition works for Pathfinder. I was learning it for the Blood Rager, and the drain condition in the book is not super specific on how necessarily it works. So I opened up Foundry and I put it on a token and messed around a little bit, and that's how I figured out at least how it was probably intended to be used. And that's the great thing about having like online systems that just do it automatically. It removes a lot of the question or a lot of the guesswork, because, you know, as long as the company themselves are working with the product, which in Foundry's case they do, then, you know, you get to know the answer for sure, no question. I learned things about Scythe that we did actually wrong, by the way, through the Scythe Steam game. So there's just there's a need to be upgraded to a digital space. There's really no reason not to anymore, because forevermore, unless something happens to the internet, humanity is going to be digitally connected for the foreseeable future, which means the friends we make are going to be, on average, further away, like, because you get to make friends with anyone anywhere, you're in a similar digital space where distance doesn't matter. And so on average, your friends are going to be hundreds, if not thousands of miles away. So I feel like there's nothing wrong with physical media, and people will still buy physical books, because like I have a sketch cover of Pathfinder books, even though I own almost all of them digitally now, because I think they're really cool. There's all kinds of nerd swag people get for having, even if Trench Crusade was very much a like mostly digital community, people would still want to make the models and play in person whenever they get the opportunity, because then that's a different kind of fun. Like, I'm not even questioning that Trench Crusade would be better in person. It probably would, but I would rather get to play Trench Crusade than to have to wait to play it in person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd rather get to play it now than like think about playing it or think about how cool it would be to play. And yeah, I'm also happy that at least the community right now is looking a lot better, because you mentioned, at least it doesn't have a lot of the baggage that the Warhammer community has, and also the fact that it does have some of the bad eggs, mainly the people that come and disparage it, which that being someone who has made lore videos for Trench Crusade, and if you make a video on it, you will meet those exact same people. Mm-hmm. I feel like they, some of them definitely search Trench Crusade just to comment.
Right.
And then others, because they leave a comment on every Trench Crusade video, keep getting recommended them, leaving comments being like, why do I keep getting Trench Crusade videos? Like, I wonder.
Yes. Not because you're interacting with them or anything like that.
I did say that once, and then they were like, I don't think that's true. It's like, cool, man. But I've noticed, at least, all of those people, because they were all saying the same thing. This game, dead on arrival. They killed their game after they said, after they kicked out a lot of like the really shitty members of their Discord.
Yeah.
Absolute silence from that camp. Fucking nothing. Mainly because if anyone pipes up about it, everyone comes out and just says what the current Kickstarter level is. Which, I feel like is a really good counterpoint. If someone says, ugh, go woke, go broke, and then someone says $2 million.
$2 million, yeah. Okay. So I learned something real recently about the tabletop community, like in general. And I was going to make a video called Why I Hate the Tabletop Community. But despite that video probably doing well, I'm not going to make it because
it's a little inflammatory.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the point. It's online content, but like the reason why I'm not making it is because it doesn't do what I want to happen to tabletop. And like that was the moment where like content brain versus like why I'm actually here conflicted for a moment. But why I dislike the tabletop community is tabletop is a hyperfixation for many. There's so many people who hyper focus on it, and there's some people who, when they hear like a rule said incorrectly or they think is incorrect, or some of the lore gets mixed up, they have a literal like painful reaction to that. Like emotionally it hurts them and they have to correct it because they can't stand someone getting their game info wrong. Like, if you've ever heard someone say a thing and then just get angry because they're doing it, they're misrepresenting it or whatever. That's just what it is. And so, like, I know because every once in a while I'll have someone find like my Lancer content or whatever, and then they'll just go through all my videos just nitpicking little things. And that's annoying to me because, like, my job as a content creator and the whole point of my series is to get people interested in the thing. I am not going to get a rule right 100% of the time, you know. It's impossible. I juggle too many game systems, and sometimes rules are just kind of left up to some vague interpretation that might have been answered in a place I just haven't found. So there's going to be errors, you know. It's going to be a thing. But the point of my content is to get people interested, to make people like the game, to make people try it out. And so the people who have to correct everything I say, they are completely missing the point of the content I'm talking about, or the reason why the video exists altogether. Yeah. And the Tabletop community is chock full of these kinds of people. Like, if recent times have told us anything, it's not as small of a percentage as we like to think. Like, the weirdos, we like to think like, oh, that's just a loud minority. It's a lot more than that, honestly speaking. It's a lot more. It's just how many are willing to actually speak up about it, I think, is the smaller part. And it's the same thing with Trench Crusade, right? Is like, Trench Crusade. Yeah, I agree. That's actually 100%. But there's a ton of Lancer people who will rip you apart for saying something like that, because it's a small game and we can't have negative criticism on small games. That's not permitted.
Yeah, like, you gotta critique it. Like, even though, like, it's a great game, we love it. We love Lancer, but also, like, I don't know. I don't trust it when people are really negative about the idea of critiquing things they love. I'm a believer of, as I will be the first person to critique things that I love. If I hold something to like my own like adoration, I'll be the first person to also levy criticism at it.
Don't get us started on 5e.
Oh no, the quota.
The quota, oh no. Gotta say something. 50 gold pieces for a potion. Though it's also important to recognize why people enjoy these things. And like, Trench Crusade is a really good example of it's coming out in a space that has been like, not to be punny here, but very entrenched in their ways for like decades. Who feel like war games have to be done in a very specific way or produced by very specific kinds of people. And so you're gonna get these people who are gonna see it, instantly hate it because it's not what they like in their hobby, quote unquote.
Yeah. And the actual like situation for it, not even to like tread the entire situation that occurred, it's really interesting, because what I've noticed with people who are like coming at my videos to insult it, they do the exact same move where they come at me for like, oh, Trench Crusade, that's the game with the really woke Discord, right? And it's like, I mean, like, they always levy it like that, and it's like, what? Not really. Like, that's not what they are. And then they hit back hard if I do respond like that. The occasional time I do, they're like, then they hit back way harder, being like, oh yeah, no, Trench Crusade's awful. It's the worst thing ever. What an awful company. Company being like, implying almost like it's larger than 3 people. Essentially, like, they almost like have to think of it like it's Games Workshop. And the way I've been seeing it and kind of breaking it down, I think I understand what's happening. Because it is fresh off of the entire situation was the situation that happened with Warhammer when they introduced women. And then jumping to, oh, hell yeah, there's a brand new game. And a lot of people jumped to it because it was like, oh, this game looks really cool. Maybe we can run here. This game isn't woke. And then everyone ran to this game. And then they were like, well, we don't like a lot of you people. This is weird. Because then a lot of other people were like, finally, a game for my traditional Christian values. And they started immediately calling Trench Crusade Tradcath. And like being really shitty to like the mods, some of which are like non-binary or like trans, and like misgendering them and shit. And like that's some of the stuff that happened. And then they'll misrepresent it really hard, and it's because some of the like content creators who are like making industry of shitting on stuff and like being anti-woke and all that, as they would claim, just tell people to like point at a thing and like be mad, be upset, and then they just direct people at a thing. And like that's what it sounds like. It's like you don't actually know what this is, do you? Like a lot of people, they say things about Trench Crusade like, isn't this the game that's like this? And it's like, what? No, not at all. You don't actually know what this is. I think someone just told you that you're not supposed to like Trench Crusade, and therefore you don't. Because someone has like talked about, like, I've heard lots of things about like Trench Crusade in my comments, and I'm like, this is not what this game is at all.
Yeah.
Like the people that are like, oh, this game is awful, it's not historically accurate. It's like it's not meant to be.
What are you talking about?
Like there's like one historical plot point in the game, and it's literally that the Crusades happened, and that like at the year that it was supposed to happen, and like that's it. And then the other bit that's really annoying, and this isn't directed at you, Dead Phoenix, don't get me wrong at all, you just reminded me of it, is the people that will immediately say that it is a ripoff and like trying to steal from Warhammer, because yeah, Warhammer also not historically accurate,
right.
Not realistic at all, but they'll say like, oh, this game is just ripping off Warhammer. And it's like, the only thing similar to Warhammer that Trench Crusade has is that it's a war game and that it has religious symbolism. That's kind of it. But like Trench Crusade goes whole hog religious. Like Warhammer is like, it's got a lot of theming. The Imperium is very religious, but you know, it's not going like whole hog religious. God isn't like as present. God is a full force in Trench Crusade. You can wear a helmet that God will actively communicate with you. There is a unit in Trench Crusade where you are a sniper. You wear a helmet that God will like directly like talk to you. And there's a saint character that domed a heretic from 3 miles away, because God told him where to point the gun. That doesn't happen. Fun. Exactly. That doesn't happen in Warhammer like as much. The only downside is if you wear the God talking like helmet, you can't sleep anymore because God won't shut the fuck up. He's a chatty dude apparently. You have to wear drugs that just like keep you awake forever. It is rough. But like that it's a lot of things like that. It's just people don't actually know what they're saying. It's an industry that kind of cycles and just keeping you upset. And it's frustrating. But what can you do? People are just gonna kind of stay in this whole bubble. It makes talking about Trench Crusade kind of annoying, but on the other side, everyone who actually like is part of Trench Crusade and like engages with it and like the community is honestly really cool. Every single person that is from the Discord that found my videos is probably like so fun to talk to. And everyone that has like corrected me, built up like extra details that I missed in my videos, absolutely delightful people. They're so fun because there's so many hidden lore details that Thomas will just lore drop and not put in the fucking lore PDFs at all, because he's just like, oh yeah, it's actually this thing. Yeah. And then I have to search through that Discord so much for my
That's
videos.
Another video.
Yeah, the Discord thing.
Yeah. Also, thank you, Mordkin, for the follow.
It's honestly just because it's him being excited about his world. That
Yeah.
one would happen even if there was a core book. I feel like he'd still do that.
Yeah.
But like it's when there's a core book, I'll be happier because it'll be easier to make anything. But like he's a big fan of just answering lore questions and then being like, "Oh, I guess there's just more details that I missed."
Yeah. And funny enough, so easy, you point out a very interesting part of the tabletop discussion. So war games, that's kind of its own thing when it comes to this, but when it comes to like constructive criticism, constructive is in reference to something that would like make the game better, right? But that's under the implication that we're all playing the same game. So one of the things with another thing I was going to talk about in this video that I'm not going to make is tabletop is impossible to talk about in any way that is universally applicable, because like you see white room combat tossed around a lot when it comes to discourse, especially when it comes to like Pathfinder, talking about optimization and everything like that. And the thing is, for some people, white room combats is the reality of their game, right? Like,
Yeah.
their GM doesn't make interesting encounters. Maybe they focus purely on the story. Maybe they don't think about it because that's not how the game kind of comes across to them as. And so white room combats are the only thing they come across. When I was talking about the Seneschal class in my video, I was like, the Seneschal class has so many really good features. I could make an absurdly strong character with this. It has no combat features. If you're playing in a campaign that has no real narrative, everything is just a method of transporting you to the next battlefield, then that obviously doesn't apply. Seneschal can't be helpful because that's just not how that game is orientated.
Yeah.
So
it's funny because I think we'll get to it later because I don't have too much to say about Trench Crusade yet. Like I think I just have one point to make building off of this that you're making. But when we get to it with Divine Mysteries, it's funny because I know we're gonna mention. I think we're thinking about the same thing when it comes to some of the class archetypes that are in Divine Mysteries.
Yeah.
Because I saw a post that was breaking down the Battle Harbinger class archetype. And it kind of sounded like somebody was breaking down how the class archetype for Battle Harbinger worked, but in the fact that it's not good if you white room combat it. And I was like, okay. And I was happy to at least see that people in the comments were pushing back against the points this guy was making.
Yeah.
Which I was happy to see.
So to kind of like finish off the thought, and then we can talk about maybe the implications for Trench Crusade as well, is when it comes to tabletop, there's so many variables and so many different ways that things can be implied, how different games can go, what different campaigns are based off of. There's no objective way to talk about the game, period, because legitimately, like for our games, for instance, I, as a GM, am a improv engine. You put in any kind of prompt, you ask me a question, you give me some part of your character's backstory, and I'm going to spit out narrative and mechanics around that. That's just what happens. So we get a lot out of the game system, and I like every other GM, have weaknesses. I'm really bad about having combats with like places you could shove enemies in the pits for instance. We just don't have a lot of encounters like on cliffs or anywhere you can push enemies off of 9 times out of 10. So things like the shove action don't really do anything. But having characters who have lots of skills, having characters who have lots of lore or lots of different social abilities and everything like that are really good. And in fact, I reward role play with things like better items, all that kind of stuff, where the group does get more powerful than where they are supposed to be in the math of Pathfinder. And so there's a lot of balance in Pathfinder that really doesn't matter. Even objectively bad options can be good in a game like mine. But that, like, I'm a hobby GM who's been doing this for decades now with lots of experience and a deep and intense passion for tabletop theory and running like good tabletop games. I'm going to hazard a guess that 80%, no, maybe not even 80%, because GMs are a special breed themselves. But I'm going to say a lot of GMs don't have any of that. And so it's like, what's the bare basics of tabletop? Dungeon crawling, go into a room, fight monsters in room, maybe make slightly more interesting room, but it's all like white room combats in the end anyway. Heck, even many of the actual adventure paths, there's a lot of white room combats in a lot of the modules and a lot of the designs. So it's like white room combat is very viable. And the thing is that the criticisms people are giving may be constructive, but for their own games,
Yeah. Which is the bit that gets me, because like whenever I'm reading those, it always hits me, because I just always think in the framework of how I play.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's whenever I hear all this, like these options so bad, they're really useless, and then I'm looking at it and I'm like, you're talking like this is competitive.
Yeah.
I'm like, when I look at this, I'm like, man, that looks like a fun concept. I could build a character around this. And when we're playing in your game, I'm like finding fun ways to play this character. And the only part that matters to me is, does the character feel fun? And I won't notice really if the character is like playing optimally. I don't care too much. It'll be fun. Like, I don't know right now if Avenger is like a really good class archetype, if they're like strong. However, I am actually pretty happy with the character I came up with, my Caden Callion like Avenger. I think the little guy I came up with, the dual wielding rapier Avenger for Caden Callion, is kind of a fun concept. That's a little bit of a vibe to be like the wandering drunkard party animal who is like actually a divine avenger coming to liberate the oppressed and like slay tyrants. I just like the it's basically the drunken master, but instead like a Zorro type, like a fencer. Like that is the exact vibe of a character.
Right.
And it's so fun, and there's so many options to do it. It's like, oh, this just works. Cool. Is it optimal? I don't fucking know, but it works. And building on that before we go full Pathfinder, I just have one point to make about this, because I think it's really good. What you're saying, I agree wholeheartedly with all of this. I just think transferring to wargaming, there's just a really interesting lens when you take that all that points you're making with criticism and different types of play to wargaming, because of one simple aspect that we've been building on. Wargaming is really hard to access with how much money it is. So the criticism game when it comes to wargaming is a funny little minefield, because a lot of people who are fans of wargaming properties, a large majority of them don't actually play the game or like engage with the hobby like physically. So it's fun because a lot of the criticisms are very like surface level stuff or narrative level. Maybe they're not great narrative level, but it's going through that. And there's a lot of people. I've built up my audience to be like to be very good about it. Yeah, you can like Warhammer and then also not engage with it like physical hobby side. You just gotta be honest with it. And like literally like that, James. I think that's a good way to literally approach it. I have then seen the opposite way of then being like, I am an authority on Warhammer. I have never read a book. I have never played a game. I have never painted a model. I know the lore through memes. However, I am an authority figure. And it's like, no, you're not. That's untrue. And it's the same way with Trench Crusade, it's the same way with that. It's an interesting transfer when you take it to like tabletop RPGs and tabletop war games. Because like tabletop RPGs are significantly more accessible price-wise. So it's a lot easier for people to at least understand how a tabletop RPG works. Because even if you can't play it, you can at least look at it, think about playing it a lot, make a build for Pathfinder. You can do all that completely for free. You can simulate a white room combat without ever like playing the game. And I have a feeling there's a lot of people who do that. But it's harder to do that for wargaming. So it's at least an interesting prospect when it comes into the internet side of both of these hobbies. So I do think that people need to learn how to critique a little better, but it'll never happen fully. Internet side, we'll always just have to sift through people who are kind of just lobbing stuff. Just, I feel like this is a thing, and then they state it full objectively.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, but like, a lot of my point was that, like, you can't speak objectively because different games are literally just different games.
Oh yeah.
That, like, a fix in one person's game is a break in another person's game. It's there's too many ways to play tabletop, which should be a good thing, but it also makes it hard to have a proper dialogue when it comes to this kind of stuff, because like you said earlier, when you play your character, you don't think about optimization, and even if you did, you wouldn't notice anyway whether you were or were not optimized, because like games like Pathfinder, everyone is just like, finishing combat faster means less healing. There's so much infinite healing, and there's like cleric healing and everything is so good in Pathfinder that that's not a problem. And if it is a problem in your game, we're just playing different games, you know.
Oh yeah. And at least if we were engaging with hobby side Warhammer, like actually playing it, there is literally, I am only playing one style of Warhammer. It is not different types of play each way. We're talking about like tournament official rules 40k. It's the same game. You jump to a different table unless they're like breaking the rules, and then you call it
Yeah, that's definitely the difference in wargaming. Is like, it's a competitive game by nature. You're playing against someone else, and so everyone needs to kind of have the same mutual understanding of the rules.
Exactly, and like that's the difference, and it's the bit that gets me with some of the communication in Pathfinder, where I look at it and I'm like, why are you talking about this like it's competitive?
Yeah.
This is the exact same language I've seen of and have been talked to by when I've asked my friends like how to play my faction better. Like this, I'm not playing against another person. I'm not trying to kill my friend and like get more points over my my GM. I'm trying to like just role play a character. I picked this feat because I felt like my character would pick it.
Yeah.
That it felt better roleplay wise. That's the only reason. I know this one does like, I guess, a couple more damage, but like, I don't know. That one doesn't feel like in character. I don't feel like my boy would use this weapon.
Like, that's why no?
Literally it. Exactly.
I love that, because that's so accurate. That's painfully accurate.
There is literally a mindset that is definitely like that.
Yeah.
It's hard to, it's definitely like there's a block point that like I feel like different types of players have. It's the same block point I have, where it's like engaging with the idea of like playing a tabletop role-playing game, like not like a role-playing game, is the exact same block someone else would have for like my perspective. I think it's interesting.
You know what's funny? You want to talk about someone who's definitely played a very unoptimized build in fantasy? Aragorn from Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah, fucking that dude's all over the place.
He's like, okay, so like, he's a ranger. He's like a ranger fighter hybrid kind of character. Doesn't really do a lot. Doesn't use ranger stuffs for like 2/3 of the adventure for the most part.
Tracking. He definitely has nature. Because he like tracks. He makes medicine.
Yeah.
He makes like camps and like hides camps. He does it for like wilderness trekking, stealth, and like medicine.
Yep.
And like so he has like a good wisdom and dex.
Yeah, and it's funny too because like towards the end of his story, when his hidden backstory comes up, and we actually learn that he's a king or something, and then the GM just gives him a broken ability to command the armies of the undead, and all his other abilities are no longer useful because he just has a ghost army now. So, talk about unoptimized builds.
At least he can only do it once. At least. But yeah, like good old because he gets like a cool magic sword, the real cool like extra dope sword.
Yeah.
And then his build because he's got like he's good with a bow and arrow. He's just good with whatever weapon you give him. So his stat spreads all over the place.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, he's not min-maxed at all. He's like he's the guy who rolled for his stats and rolled good in every stat.
Kind of, yeah.
He has because he's really intelligent, he's really charismatic. Like he's not like outspokenly charismatic, but he's the guy who knows what to say in every situation. Because he's like he's super likable and and he always has just he has great mental stats. He literally withstood the ring enough to like send Frodo away because he knew it would corrupt him. He made great decisions. He's very intelligent. But his build is all over the place.
Yeah, right. So like that's just the thing, is so many people are playing just radically different games. And before we get too far into this like loose tangent, it's not really a tangent, but I want to talk about one of the other points in the video so that no one says I did it, like I didn't talk about Divine Mysteries whatsoever.
I do want to hear what your points about Divine Mysteries, because I want to know what you're thinking about with it.
But yeah, so Divine Mysteries, I probably will be getting Divine Mysteries sometime next week, more likely than not, so you guys will be able to see that content. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Pass the word around. I'll be hitting the books like I always do. But Divine Mysteries, right? So it's another religion-based book coming out immediately after War of Immortals, which War of Immortals came to a very lukewarm kind of what's the word? I lost the word. Reception, yeah. Very lukewarm reception, where either people liked it or people really didn't jive with it. A lot of people didn't like the different the new rules with the mythic system. They weren't just interested in that at all. The class archetypes, I feel like, are such a mixed bag, because when you look at them from purely a Pathfinder 2nd edition lens, they're pretty cool. They're interesting. They add some new ways you can kind of play some of the classes and all that kind of stuff. But when you open that lens up to include 1st edition Pathfinder, then it's like, oh, my class that I absolutely liked, it's now a sub option, and it's nothing like it was before. Like Vindicator from Inquisitor, not the same whatsoever. And not whatsoever, loosely inspired is a good way to put it. And so it was a very like somewhat conflicting book, and not a lot of people were super hyped about it. And there's a lot of people who liked it because it's like, I liked it. I thought it was a good book. We got 2 new classes, and we got like the first set of class archetypes finally that are not just like how to cast spells differently. So, like I thought it was a good book. Well, I need to refrain from being called a Paizo simp. Yeah. I mean, so that's the thing, right? And so Divine Mysteries, it's a book that's gonna be a remaster for a lot of the new or the domains that were introduced in Gods and Magic. We're gonna get some new gods, which is kind of cool, but only relevant for people who have characters interact with gods. And we are going to get some more loosely religious type characters. The Palatine investigator is more like just magically tied, but probably is going to have a little bit of religious stuff added onto it. And so, like, are we looking at something the same? And I'm going to just open this up by saying, no, it's different, because this is an options book. This is a secondary book. It's not like a big book release. There's no classes coming out.
Yeah, it's a Lost Omens book. It's like, because one of the main goals of this was a giant compendium to reprint, reorganize, and I think fix up some of the gods, like list of gods.
Yeah.
Because I think, because like a lot of the gods were just too scattered among too many other things. So it's just meant to be a compendium of stuff, especially gods that might have gotten forgotten along the way. Also, I think updating some of the boons. If like gods they thought might need some boons, they're gonna get some. Yeah, I don't know why Gorham's not in it.
Yeah,
it's so weird.
I wonder why.
I wonder. I miss him so much. Well, he was taken too soon.
Taken too soon. That's a way to put it. Also, another fascinating bit of trivia here, which I'm just wrong book, verifying real quick before I open my mouth. Yes. So, Lost or Divine Mysteries is actually going to be a bigger book than War of Immortals, like page count wise.
Shit. Okay.
Divine Mysteries is 320 pages to War of Immortals 226.
Hey, okay.
Now, granted, a good portion of that is going to be dedicated to lore stuff, talking about, the gods, the little, oh goodness, what are they called? The little bird. There's a specific name. She's a little psychopomp.
I like the bird.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the exact word. But, she's going to be going around talking to various gods, getting some information. So, even though it's more pages, I'm not necessarily saying it's a more rules-intense book. In fact, I would say War of Immortals was an incredibly rules-dense book. Mostly rules, honestly speaking. But... like a lot of the book is updating domains and some other mechanics. We're getting the Rivathune Emissary and Mortal Herald, just general archetypes, along with the class archetypes, and we're getting some new gods or divine entities, not necessarily gods. Yeah, I know the name's Yavali. I just can't remember exactly what Yavali is. Because she is she's a psychopomp, but like a specific type of psychopomp. I can't remember.
I'm not surprised that the book is so long, because there's just a lot of cosmic and divine level entities. I think you gotta shove in here lore wise, and then expand on some lore stuff. There's a lot of space for it, and I'm excited to read through that, because I genuinely want to get into this level of lore. Because this is something I've said, that if I'm going to make lore content for Pathfinder, this is the book I've kind of been waiting for. Because I think this is a really good jumping off point to get like associated with Galarian.
Mm-hmm. Nosoir, yeah. That's the word I was looking for. I forgot the name, but yeah. So, it's something that I think is going to be a decent book. I don't think it's going to be huge, but I also think that there's going to be less controversial bits when it comes to it. Because, like, if we're all going to be honest, whether or not you think the Exemplar dedication breaks the game, we all have to admit that the Exemplar dedication, like the base dedication itself, is really strong. And it's something that feels very different than how many of the other class dedications seems to work. And some people
And
bounce off that, you know. The imbalance of it is annoying for some. I've already given my piece on all that nonsense.
there are already Reddit posts, James. I have them pulled up.
Yeah.
I have there too because they're actually really useful promos of what two of the class archetypes are and what they can do. But they are both negative. Because and then the thing I enjoy is that people in the comments are like, "What? Those sound fine."
Yeah. So I think it's going to be fine though. I don't think it's going to be as controversial as War of Immortals ended up becoming. And I feel like it's going to be a lot easier of a book to just kind of enjoy. But like we've really gotten to a period of time where Pathfinder has an ever-growing community, and with that comes an ever-growing number of people who just play the game differently than you do. And that's just going to spark different controversies and everything like that, especially because recently Joe Cat had a stream going over Pathfinder 2nd Edition.
He did.
And that was surprising. Well, not surprising knowing Joe Cat, because it seems like it would be a kind of game Joe Cat would enjoy personally.
Yeah, it was nice too, because I was like, another. I was just like bracing for anything, and then apparently he was really just happy and like kind of enjoyed what he was seeing, and he came out with like a battle herald bard. But yeah, he liked what he saw.
Yeah. And Joe Cat, I think, is a really good person to introduce a lot of people to the idea of Pathfinder as a casual kind of enjoyer of tabletop stuff, you know. Like, I'm sure he enjoys it a lot, and I know he loves role-playing a lot, but definitely not someone who's, like, entrenched in the community necessarily. And also just kind of fits the vibe that Paizo's going for in general, being you know, like a cross-dressing is not the right word. Non-gender conforming catboy, I think, is the best way to put it. Like, that's a very vibe for Paizo, in all honesty. And I think a lot of people in the community will enjoy it, and I think a lot of his community will probably enjoy it.
Genuinely, I would love a crap guide to like a Pathfinder class. I think that'd be a fun watch, because like I did like crap guide to D&D back in the day. Those were fun. That got me, like, I understood D&D more, because like when I watched those, because like that's what got me more understanding of it, because like I understood how the classes worked more, because they were fun, and like they did impart good knowledge. No crap guide. Fair enough then, because like I think if he just makes fun videos on it, like, fair. I think his style would be good. Though, like, the part that I also think he'd be good at it, and the reason I was hoping for a crap guide, is because when he said maybe I make a Pathfinder video, the first things I was seeing was people joking about Pathfinder 1E mechanics.
That would be funny.
And it was like, yeah, it'd be funny, but I was immediately like, okay, it's people who, like, they only really interact with D&D. They just don't know 2nd edition, like, really, or they're like, they only are in that bubble, like the bubble I was, as someone who's only playing D&D at the time. Pathfinder, that's the game that's like really complicated and has like a million feats, right? Because like the first thing I saw was like, oh yeah, make a video on the grappling mechanics, and it was like, oh okay, yeah, you're talking about 1st edition. Like, that's just the meme. But like, I would love something if he can just pull a lot of people to be like, oh wait, maybe I make a game of I play this game because it's like really cool. Yeah, a little more like Math Finder. Exactly.
Yeah.
He'd be really good at getting people interested in the game.
I agree. And I think that's something that we also kind of need to take into account is as long as people are enjoying the game, the tabletop community in general needs to be okay with people playing your game incorrectly. Like
Yeah,
that's I think like it's not even as bad as that sounds because to some degree almost everyone plays like a tabletop game incorrectly. You do some homebrew or something because you just don't jive with a part of the game very well. So like everyone already kind of does that, and we just have to be okay with people jumping in, casually doing things, playing the game their own way, and not get all annoyed about it. Like if someone's complaining because their wrong their wrong interpretation of how the game works is wrong, then like yeah, it's like, well, no, that's not how that works. But
yeah. There's a difference between like Pathfinder Second Edition is bad because my homebrew rule is bad, and or like Pathfinder Second Edition. Here is my critiques of it, and here are the things that worked in my table. Those are two different statements.
right.
Like that's inherently different. And everyone does little things where they bump up against a rule. It causes friction for like their table or just them in general, where they're like, I can't meld with this. Like this is something I just don't like, because that happens with any game, and you homebrew it away. Like for us, it's a lot of little things. Like yeah, why wouldn't we have it so you can just draw an item, like draw your sword when you take your first like movement action, or like at the beginning of combat? Why would we waste that action? That just all that feasibly does is slow down combat.
Yeah.
That makes things take longer. Why would we have it so if you're downed, you drop your weapon? That just slows things down. I personally, well, yeah, let's homebrew out pockets in like the bag stuff because that's stupid and annoying.
Oh, that's
And,
not
like,
even
the
homebrew.
worst
That was already done. But
which I'm happy they made official, because I would have homebrewed it out completely. That's
I
an
like
awful mechanic.
pockets.
I
enjoyed them.
disagree and think that's weird. Like I don't want to know I know what's in my real pockets. I don't want to know what's in my character's pockets.
But regardless, you know, like it's the kind of stuff where the tabletop community is just absolutely filled to the brim with some neurodivergent people who are just sensitive to the thing that they've hyperfixated on, and it can make the space somewhat insufferable at times, because it doesn't matter if most people in the hobby are chill people who are really nice when you keep bumping into the assholes, you know? Like, it doesn't matter if 90% of the people who visit a retail business are nice people when there's that 10% who come in and make your life a living hell. That's going to make your job a living hell, because nice people just make your workplace either neutral or slightly more pleasant, but rude people make that so much worse and is a thing you have to deal with. Like, you don't have to deal with good people, but you have to deal with bad people to some degree, even if it's just compartmentalizing the things they say. And it's something that is it's a vibe we gotta change. And I think the tabletop community in general is just one of those niche communities that is very particular about this kind of problem, where yeah, there's tons of people out there who openly enjoy the hobby, are okay with you homebrewing and doing whatever, or just don't care if you're playing the game correctly or not, as long as you're enjoying yourself, you know. But there is a lot, and I mean a lot of people who are very, very obsessed with the game and the way it should play versus not play, and they litter the space. They are the garbage upon the sidewalks in which we all use, right? And no one wants to see that. And so it's not anything that I think any person can individually change, but I've taken up on myself that even like if someone's corrected me in a way that like is fine, I'm like, oh yeah, sure, totally. And the people are being overly anal about the things I talk about. I just don't interact. I just don't. It's not worth stirring the pot, because that, in the end, that's just what the people want, you know. They, even if they might not necessarily want an argument, they want to be right, and so they'll fight for it. So arguing with them is giving them something to fight for, and that's very counterintuitive to the vibe in general. So, you know, I'm gonna keep doing my thing with my videos, you know, my reviews. If I get a rule wrong, it's fine. It's whatever. If there's a thing I don't like, it's my own thing in particular. But I always tend to, at the very least, openly say, this doesn't work in my games, but it might work in yours. All that kind of stuff. I'm not gonna be overly positive. I'm gonna critique the game where I feel like it needs to be critiqued, but I'm also not going to combat people about those critiques. If they disagree with me, even if they're wrong, that's fine, because if they're doing it in a way that's more fun in their game, all the better, you know.
That's what matters, is just whatever they have fun with at the table, which, you know, it's building off of that. It's funny enough. Very recently, I saw something online, like TikTok related. I don't know why it came up my feed, but it provoked me to like leave a take. I found my way, because I think my TikTok algorithm found out that I like tabletop.
Yeah.
Finally. But it stumbled onto a 5th edition like podcast, and where they were reading hot takes, and one of the hot takes was a person saying they despise reflavoring of mechanics.
Yeah, I've seen that argument other places too. It's very common, actually.
I didn't know that was common, because the whole argument, which for anyone who maybe hasn't heard it, is they don't like it when people really deviate from the text of the ability. Like the example they gave is Eldritch Blast is, you know, a magical blast. They don't like the idea of playing a warlock and then your Eldritch Blast is, you know, something really different. Sure, it could be like a different style of beam, or instead of a big blast, maybe instead it's like an extendo Inspector Gadget like punch, or like a gun or something. They don't like that at all. And then the podcasters went on to a thing, because they have two different like views. One's a GM, one's a player, where the GM was a lot more anal about it at one point in his life, and he was going a lot more like, there's a part of him that he said he just can't wrap his head around the idea of like, why would you want to reflavor it like that? Why, like, but mechanically it can't work like that. And then this player was like, but I don't care about the mechanics. I just want it to look like this. And then the only part I was thinking about this entire time was, man, what a weird problem 5th edition has. Like that sucks that you got to deal with this. And when it comes to like Joe Cat trying to bring people over to Pathfinder, that's the point I'm actually largely bringing it. I just really want people to come into a game and try to see an experience where it's the experience I had, but they can play a game where they don't have to endlessly try to fiddle and like adjust and reflavor a game to play a character they want to play. Because that's the take I left. This is like, maybe this is people try to do this all the time, and this wouldn't be a problem if 5th edition wasn't so limited on the types of characters you could play. Because like the characters archetype that was very clear that were being like used as examples was Inventor and Gunslinger. Those are two character archetypes that are impossible to play in 5th edition.
Well, kind of. Technically, Inventor is the Artificer.
It is unofficial now.
It's not. It is official, but it's not 2024 official.
Yes, that was the point I was making in that comment. It's like, you cannot play that anymore in official, and like you cannot do that at all. Like Gunslinger is a unofficial class by Matthew Mercer because of Critical Role, and like those are the two things you can do. And so maybe it's just a problem unique to this. And if somebody can see through like a fun content creator who's actually enthusiastic and like likes just D&D and Pathfinder, and I feel like Joe Cat of all people would make this point. He would make the point of like, you have a character concept, you can just do it in Pathfinder.
Right.
I hope he makes that, because like, that's the part I love about it. I love just the idea of like, man, I have this goofy concept. Here's what I made. Absolutely zero reflavoring. This is rules as base, out of the book, raw. I made this dumbass character concept. And I adore that. I love the game. I want more people to experience that.
Yeah. Also, like, I have a point, but yeah, Victor, Artificer's invention requires reflavoring. That's super funny.
Yeah.
Because
like,
technically it would.
I want to play Inspector Gadget. There's no way I could, like, a Gadgeteer character. I can't do that with Inventor, like, at all.
You mean Artificer?
Yeah, Artificer. Like, the three styles of Artificer is like armor, gun, or robot pet. And then maybe Alchemist? Like, those are the four? I acted four.
But, anyway, oh god, I lost my point. What was it? What were we talking about right before this last comment?
People playing Pathfinder because you can just make whatever characters raw instead of reflavoring. Joe Cat bringing people in because of that. He can just show how fun it is.
That seems closer. I've lost my point, but regardless, we don't talk about the Alchemist Artificer. The thing that I think really. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say now. So I hate this idea that a lot of these people who talk about all this discourse in TTRPGs who feel like they've been doing it forever never got a rule wrong in their damn life. Never tried a game back in the day before we had videos where you could find that information and like just misinterpreted something. Because I'll tell you, I've played games years and then learned I was doing something wrong the whole time because like I misread it once. It felt like it worked and we just never looked up the rule ever again. You know,
especially if you did it pre-YouTube, like, yeah.
Like Anima Beyond Fantasy, oh my god, that game I already homebrew a ton, but there's also just a lot of things like I was like, oh wait, that's how it works? Oh my god, we've been doing this wrong forever and I just didn't know.
That feels so normal. Like, you do something that long and like that early, and then it's only when like someone else points it out or like rereads it and you're like, oh wait a second,
yeah,
it's like this. Like that's normal. Yeah.
And so it's like people just need to be okay playing a new tabletop game and learning it from scratch and not being told they're doing it wrong all the time. That's the thing. I think that's what's made the tabletop community super insufferable, is you're being told constantly you're playing wrong. You know, like you're describing what's essentially a white room combat and someone comes in and says, that's just white room combat. That doesn't, that doesn't apply to actual playing the game. And you're like, but that's how we've always been playing. I don't know what you're talking about, kind of situations. Because tabletop is just a game where like anything goes. That's the good part of it. That's the fun of it. That's the fantasy of it. That's why we play tabletop, because anything goes. The GM can make up whatever rule. Literally, we were playing Fabula Ultima recently, which is a game I absolutely love. I've really been enjoying our free time we've been playing it. And we were one of the most impactful scenes so far in that campaign was the group talking to some animated doilies, like tabletop doilies.
Yeah.
Those aren't real monsters in the book.
No, we just made that up.
We just made it up. And that was super impactful, you know? It's like most tabletop, like some of the more impactful moments people tend to have are when something goes not like as described. Like that's the wild thing about comparing things like archetypes and classes against each other, because it's a fantasy, and there are ways where like you're playing an animist who's talking to ghosts and is really good at communicating with spirits and everything, where they can do something super impactful if the story happens to include a very impactful spirit, you know? And it's just like, if that animist wasn't there, that wouldn't have happened, and the group would have missed out on that opportunity, you know? So it's like, so is playing animist objectively good? Yeah, sure, in your game, probably. If your GM is good, probably. And that's also another thing as well, is tabletop is so subject to the GM's design. Like, everyone's looking to the GM to run the game, because that, you know, they are all the NPCs you have, they're the dungeons you play again in, and the creatures you face off against. And if your GM plays or runs a game in a very unfun way, you're just not going to have fun with tabletop no matter what you do, no matter how fun. The best game ever designed can be ruined by a bad GM. And conversely, bad players can also do that too. There's no consistent experience in tabletop, which is the reason why it's only going to be as fun as a niche hobby can be, you know? Because you're never going to be able to consistently replicate a tabletop experience from table to table unless it's the same people.
Everyone's going to play different. Everyone's going to come in with different expectations. And I guess people are going to try to play it differently. And speaking on all that, I won't give too many spoilers just in case people are trying to wait for the book or whatever. It is the thing that blows me away that it's, some people are taking it seriously, I guess, but some people aren't. The Battle Harbinger Cleric discourse, the one that's happening on the Reddit, because there's a post that's going in. It breaks down the useful tool of this. It's the one that's breaking down how the Battle Harbinger Cleric class is working. The complaint in the post saying that it might not be good because it's strictly comparing it to War Cleric or War Priest. The reason? Battle Herald isn't very good at casting spells.
Gasp.
I know. Isn't it crazy? The class archetype that gets rid of some of the spell options in favor of other options, not good at casting spells. Isn't that nuts? And then there are people in the comments clowning on him a bit, being like, shock, surprise, it's not good at casting? Wild. And he's like, but the math, but the action economy. And they're like, okay, so that one too. It's like the proficiency bonuses, I could just play this class. And they're like, maybe I want to play a cleric that bonks. And like, this person is not wrapping their head around the idea that some people just want to play like this idea. They're like, why wouldn't you fireball and then do this? It's like, maybe the situation doesn't work for it. That too. They're saying it's like Magus, and it's like not at all. It's God, the post, except for the purpose that like this Reddit post in particular just breaks down what the Battle Herald is. This post is really fucking stupid. I gotta be real. At least like the other one for the investigator, all he says is he's like, I don't know if it's very good. This one is just actually kind of fucking stupid. It's just a person who is like believes that this class has to be played a very specific way and is upset that they didn't reprint War Priest, I guess.
Yeah, and you know, and so this is the thing, like, I feel like tabletop will get infinitely better when we embrace the idea that tabletop games are just not played the same at everyone's table, you know?
Which I'm at least happy that this person's getting pushback, because I feel like there is a cycle that happens, especially online Pathfinder discourse, that new thing releases and then a lot of people just call it bad and like shit on it for a while. And I don't like that, to be honest. It feels really weird. Like, I understand criticizing it, but it feels like every single new piece of content that drops for like Pathfinder kind of just gets called bad for a while for like no reason.
Yeah,
And like,
I
and
agree.
it's like weird because it's not bad. Like, I understand if you're like, this thing doesn't like seem useful, like this feat doesn't sound useful to me, or this one doesn't vibe with me. Because what was it, the Blood Rager? That one
Hmm.
feels a little wonky, and I
Yeah,
get that. But
that was actually an
Avenger,
example I was just about to use. Is like
yeah,
Blood Rager. Like, I understand how saves work in the game, and one of the big factors of Blood Rager is spell attack rolls. That's kind of like how they get their rage damage off with their spells. Big feature, super important. So in a game that already doesn't favor spell attack rolls because there's no items that can give them a boost like you can for weapons, and the game is kind of based on melee weapon, or well, weapon in general, proficiency scaling, it feels rough. And then when you mix the fact that they essentially use HP to cast their spells by getting the drain condition, and they also want to hit things because, that's also how they use some of their features, you have a class that wants to have high constitution, high charisma, and high strength at the same time. And it feels, that's like asking a lot. But that's a thing where it's like you're looking at it, and objectively speaking, that's, that's how it would feel to play,
yeah.
It,
I wouldn't even call it bad. I would feel like, at worst, I'd call it maybe a little like muddled, like, and maybe like in play, it would feel a little weird. But like, but there's also the reality. I don't know if like maybe you find a version of that that is actually fun. Who knows? Like, what if you try that and you're like, oh, I made a build that's kind of cool, and like you're like, yeah, it's not very good, but like this version I made is cool. And
yeah.
like that's possible because this game is very open.
Well,
and I don't know.
And there's all kinds of different things that, like, you can objectively talk about these things, and I think that's a good conversation to have. And, I feel like on some meta level, that's kind of just how it works in most people's games. But that's, like, no one is, like, or no, I'm not saying no one. We're not saying Blood Rager is bad. We're just saying it feels like it will be a little harder to play than other classes.
I honestly tonight might make a Blood Rager build, just because I'm curious. Like, I do not want to call Blood Rager bad until I get my hands on it, because all I can look at and like I've looked at it, heard about it. I'm like, that sounds like it would play a little weird. I don't know if I'd find that fun. That is a different statement than it is bad and dog shit, and that is something I see the Reddit say constantly. And I don't really like that cycle that the Reddit does, and it sounds like something I've criticized a lot of nerd communities a lot, which is a lot of nerd communities do this thing where it feels like whenever they enter the hobby, that is the point they want new things to stop being added to the game. Anything that gets added after that is suddenly bad, like for whatever reason. Either it is like suddenly worse quality, it is like ruining the game, it like for whatever reason. And is it exactly that? I don't know. It just seems like a weird trend, when I imagine there's a lot of people who are very quiet. Like our community is pretty cool about it. Like,
for the most part.
Yeah, like our community, I feel like, is pretty good about just like looking at it and being like, oh, we can see some obvious little critiques about stuff. But I feel like our community could also turn around and be like, I just critiqued this like class or class archetype, but I made a build for it. And like that I made a character I think would be fun. I feel like that could easily happen.
Well, and I'm all for, as long as it plays okay, as long as it doesn't play and kind of like underperform generally mechanically, which I can honestly say most things in Pathfinder really don't, unless we're talking about like the corpse tender archetype, which is more
That
just
was
a
weird.
meme.
That was kind of weird and goofy.
It's
Yeah,
just a meme. It's just funny.
that was really funny.
But unless it like highly underperforms, it's fine.
Yeah, the bullet dancer one too. Was it
Pole
the
dancer
monk one that doesn't work for monks?
Oh, yeah, bullet dancer. Yeah, I thought you said pole dancer. I was really
No.
confused.
Yeah,
Bullet
sorry, no,
dancer.
bullet dancer.
Yeah.
That one is weird.
That one also really feels weird. So, you know, like, I'm not saying don't critique. I'm not saying over critique. I'm saying there's just a lot of things that we can talk about that can be objectively right and objectively wrong simultaneously, which feels contradictory, but that's because you just can't get the same tabletop experience across every single table. It's impossible. You're just going to have GMs who play differently, who run their games differently. You're going to have players. Like, you can be the best GM in the world, and if your players aren't capable of a single thought other than just, like, what the internet gives them, you're going to have a bad time. It's, and that's one of the weaknesses of tabletop, is that no matter how passionate you are, getting into a good game is difficult, to say the least. If you don't know someone who's good at running games, if you don't know people who are like, I gotta say that for a long time in recent time, I was kind of having a very mid-level of fun when it came to tabletop games. It was just, you know, there are a lot of factors, but recently my enjoyment of tabletop has gone way up, and a lot of that is just due to the fact that, like, one of the things I've spent a lot of time in my life with is teaching players how to play and be in my games specifically. And so when everyone finally gets to that level where, like, we can really, the synergy starts going off, it gets way more fun, dramatically more fun. But, you know, especially, like, I've had players who really haven't been playing tabletop except for the last, like, 3 years, for instance. So it took some time. It took a lot of time and a lot of campaigns to get here, but now we're having a blast. Now we're having so much fun. Like I said, Fabula Ultima has been killer. Heck, our Mutants and Masterminds campaign recently, we've had a lot of fun. Well, a lot of silly fun too. It's like, mechanically speaking, that game's a mess. But
yeah, we have our complaints with the system. It's like, it feels like we're getting into an anima kind of game.
Yeah.
Like that we're just learning.
Yeah. Some of us have
the best way of putting it.
Made characters incorrectly. The power scaling is a little off in the party in general, but still, like, you guys just dunking on the white tigers and dealing with your silly villains that have shown up recently has been super fun, honestly.
Yeah. Characters are fun, and like the group is fun, and like the vibe is great. So like that's what is more interesting. You know, okay, I'll be real. I cooked up an idea, a fun community idea event.
Okay.
I came up with this when I talked about what we did, or how cool our community is, especially in spite of what I don't like the trend of everything. Community build event, because we haven't done that for a while. Build event. Create a build for what you think is your least favorite or the worst class in Pathfinder. Make something for your actual, like, most hated class, because I have one that's mine. I think druids in anything is the lamest shit ever. So you make something that would satisfy your interest and taste.
Okay. I can kind of see the idea. Fighter.
Yeah, you make something, like, prove that point. You have we have a community that can critique something and then turn around and support it. Because we're intellectually honest. So I could turn around and make a druid that is that is cool, mechanically interesting, and like fun that I could play. Do I like druid? No. Nature magic, ugh, cringe central. Population druid. However, I could make a druid build.
I think it must fit the vibe of the class, like using the class, but also fits the vibe of the class.
It has to be recognizable as the class. You have to be able to look at it and be like, that is the class.
Definitely an interesting idea. I think it would be a little hard for a community event, but I feel like it'd be an interesting thing to try. You know what I mean? Well, I think how I would like to set it up if we do this, which we might, I don't know, a lot of stuff going on currently.
For sure.
But I think it would be like, give me a paragraph of why you dislike this class, why it's your least favorite, and then give me your best build that you think you would have fun with this class. And
yes, you would have to explain. You have to explain why you dislike the thing, and then explain what the and you have to go into like the build, and then explain why this thing that you made, you find it more interesting, and like what you've done that sets it apart.
I think that would be interesting, because that would be like, okay, we understand why you dislike it, and we can see how you're kind of problem solving it. That'd be very interesting. I think that'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
If I didn't think of a clear way to like demonstrate it, definitely for sure. I'm definitely. Oh, you know what? Actually, so not related at all, but I think a different community event that would be interesting. I'm soon. We'll see with Divine Mysteries, and there's some other kind of like I want to creatively get out of the Pathfinder space a little bit before Divine Mysteries, which doesn't give me a lot of time. But I'm gonna be doing my class tier list, my updated one for the new year, pretty much. And I think a fun community event would be to have everyone post like a screenshot of their tier list, and then like look to see like what overlaps there are, see which classes people put like more specifically in certain areas, or maybe just trash on people's, dog tier list. I think that would be very interesting to do, like just a big community tier list stream where we just look at it, look at the numbers, all that kind of stuff, and
try to make a community consensus.
Yeah, that would be a very interesting one. We might do something like that maybe in December at some point.
I honestly like. I like events like that because I think it's just good, bring people together. But honestly, both of those ideas, they appeal to me in the same way of like, I like this community because I like the fact that it feels like we built up a group of people that can critique stuff without like, I guess, being shitty about it. I like the idea, and I want to enforce that idea in a space that like, we can dislike something, but then also turn around and be like, Pathfinder is such a good game that I can find a way to enjoy it.
Yeah,
like that's the part about the game that's really good.
That's true. I do like the idea. I definitely think that's interesting. Speaking on events,
a community tier list would be hilarious though. What is the worst class to the community?
Yeah, I do think. Fun. I do think that would be a very interesting, like, all right, BLG community, here's the people on our server. What's the server rankings? I think that would be
Alchemist F tier, Druid F tier, Champion can finally go a little higher. I'll accept that. I think I like the Champion rework.
So we might do that early December, but something I do know. So if I get Divine Mysteries next week, which might be likely, I know, because something I've been sitting on that I'll give you guys a little bit of a spoiler for is, some of you may know I've been partnered with Into the AM for a few months now. I love their shirts. Actually, I do think they're really good. This is not necessarily sponsored content here either. Though I do have a discount code. You can go in the description below. You can get some good t-shirts, some actually pretty good t-shirts for some killer deals. I actually have a big thing next week they have this big super deal thing going on, and they're sending me like 3 more shirts to advertise. But because I've been doing well selling shirts for Into the AM, they actually gave me 2 $25 codes for shirts or whatever you want on the site, and I'll be doing a giveaway during the Divine Mysteries stream where we'll give away those 2 codes. So if you are interested in getting like a really nice t-shirt that, you know, like I have had 0 problems with for the last few months, definitely stay tuned. I'll give like an announcement when I'm doing it. I don't know if it'll be next week or the week after, sometime in that range. But I do have 2 $25 gift codes I will be giving to 2 different people. And, you know, hopefully they'll get someone a t-shirt or allow someone to get a Christmas gift for someone for a little bit easier. I do, like I said, they're good t-shirts, but they also have like a sick deal coming up where they have like massive discounts. So those 2 $25 discounts should carry like a lot of weight moving forward. Just, you know, something for the next stream. And I do like the idea. I like the community tier list, like Discord. I think I'll make a video, and then we'll, like, while I'm making that video, we'll have like a community thing in the Discord. So if you have not joined our Discord yet, go down in the description or below on Twitch. There is a link to the Discord. We'll probably like make another channel temporarily for the tier lists images, and we'll go through, and then we'll have like the official community Discord or Discord community tier list like stream sometime after Divine Mysteries comes out. So yeah, we get that's definitely some interesting fun stuff for sure. And I want to do a lot because I'm going to let y'all know now, January, I'm going to be gone for a lot of January and probably a good portion of February. My daughter will be born sometime in that range, and it's probably going to be a lot. My first child, so it's going to be a very busy / exhausting time in my life, and so we just probably won't have a lot of streams or anything like that. It's also why we won't be having any live plays for like after we're done with Mutants and Masterminds, besides maybe some one-shots to fill some time, depending. But I think there'll be a lot of fun stuff to do before all that craziness happens. And we've kind of like hit time now. So before we end for the day, anything you want to leave us off with, Alex?
Yeah, I'm gonna be getting back into it soon here, probably in a good few days. I'm gonna get back up and running. I gotta also set up my space back up again. I've been moving furniture. I had to also get stopped because you know, my back has been fucked. But videos will resume. So I'm gonna be back up. But if you like lore videos for Tabletop, especially Trench Crusade, since we spent a good chunk talking about that, I have a bunch of lore content over on Glue Boy. That's my channel name. Linked in Cam's YouTube. You can go scroll down, find that, or you can just look it up. You'll find me. I got videos on Trench Crusade, Warhammer. I got Vampire the Masquerade. A few videos on Pathfinder. I got lots of stuff. And soon, in like a week or so, I'm gonna get some more videos published. Because whenever I take breaks, I just kind of say what the next ones are gonna be. I got 2 videos that are directly going to be made before I start like really pumping out some other stuff. The next video, it's going to be Trench Crusade. It's going to be a video on New Antioch, which is one of the main big factions a lot of people love. If you love really industrial, like Christian vibe, you'll fuck with it a lot. And then I'm going to deviate. I am going to make a video on the magic system of the Stormlight Archive. If you want to get a little promo on the Cosmere RPG that's coming out next year, which I think is one of the most interesting magic systems I've encountered, and you will soon get to play with in a tabletop game. So I would highly recommend subscribing to get a look at that one.
Yeah, and honestly, yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff around Trench Crusade, Cosmere, all that kind of stuff coming out next year, pretty much. So we have a lot. Next year, I feel like is going to be crazy. If JoCat gets more into Pathfinder, we might have another Pathfinder boom, like similar to the OGL.
I imagine, yeah.
So, you know,
if he makes some big good videos on it, yeah, 100%.
I'm very, very curious to see what next year entails. I mean, obviously for me, it's going to be a lot. I'm having my first child and I'm getting married next year. So already a busy year for me, but in general, tabletop. I feel like tabletop is going to be getting bigger. I feel like its growth is definitely slowing, but I feel like people are kind of branching out of the D&D space, especially because, I mean, let's face it, 2024 was kind of a bust for D&D. So I think we're going to start seeing more people who are hungry for tabletop and are going to be looking elsewhere. And, you know, that's a great time for a variety channel like mine to really blow up. So, you know, fingers crossed. But that's going to be it for us. Thank you all so much for being here. Stay tuned. Next week, we'll probably have Divine Mysteries. So we'll have a big stream on that and maybe a giveaway. But we'll say good night for now.
Good night.
Good night.